So at Heroes of Pinot, it's really about meeting the personalities and getting that firsthand account of place of the producer and really kind of getting an insight into the bottles. And I'm really pleased to be able to introduce you to Jason Drew. He's a winemaker for Drew Wines, owner, winemaker, founder, vineyard planter. Uh, Good to meet you, Jason.
Thank you. Great to meet you as well.
Looks like we got your 2021 Fog Eater Pinot that we're going to be tasting as we talk about this wine. But
Great.
we're
Yeah.
actually Anderson Valley
Yep,
up here.
that's right. Yeah, that's one of the vagaries of being such a small appellation in Northern California is that
Outstanding. And how many different types of wines are you making up there? Are you Chardonnay and Pinot Noir specific, or do you make some other things as well?
Yeah, when we first moved up to the property, which was in 2005, we purchased the property in 2004. It's a 26-acre property that's 3 miles from the ocean. So it's very much a coastal climate property that's 1,250 feet up, on average, and kind of undulates from a southeast to southwest to south. And we had not planted. I had not planted the vineyard until 2011. So at that point, I was really contracting with all the fruit, and I was making about 6 Pinot Noirs, 1 or 2 Syrahs at that time. Since then, we planted our estate property. We have 10 acres under vine now, and basically, it's mostly Pinot Noir. We have 5.5 acres of Pinot Noir, 2.5 acres of Chardonnay. And then last year I added another couple of acres that I planted to a couple of experimental blocks really, but I also have some rootstock in the ground that, I'll decide what flavor to put on those. But I did plant a little bit of Chenin Blanc and Syrah as experimental. It's very, very edgy for those 2 varietals, and we'll be, we'll be hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully we'll be able to add a little bit of estate Chenin Blanc and estate Syrah to the portfolio. So currently we are making still about 6 Pinot Noirs, a couple of appellation blends. So we have our Mendocino Ridge appellation blend, which we call our mid elevation, and we have our Anderson Valley appellation blend, which we are tasting today, called the Fog Eater. This is the 2021 vintage. And then there's also a couple of single vineyards that I'm working with from Anderson Valley as well.
So Anderson in general is typically a later harvesting site, right?
In general, it is, but it depends on where you are as well. So there's some variation. Of course, if you're what we consider in the deep end of Anderson Valley, which is closer to the coast, we're gonna, things will ripen a little bit later there versus on the, further east end of the valley, where it's a little more inland, maybe not get quite as much fog. So we will, a year like this, I mean, again, it's sort of an abnormal year because we got started late, and we are probably a good 3 weeks late still. We could catch up a little bit, but we're anticipating a late harvest this year. So I guess, maybe we'll start picking the fruit in Anderson Valley, Pinot Noir. I'm guessing at least mid-September.
How would you classify that vintage? Warmer vintage, dry vintage, wet vintage?
Well, it wasn't really wet. We were still a little bit, in the drought for sure. We actually didn't start coming out of the drought until this last season of rainfall, which is great. So I think those 3 things, a fairly mild season, especially from veraison to harvest, which is really when the ripening counts. The quality of the vintage certainly is a big player in that time, with the lower yields and a little sort of not a lot of wetness in the soil produced some really nice intensity, but we also finished up with some nice grace and graceful notes of flavors, and really nicely balanced, just beautiful vintage, I thought, which was a nice relief from the 2020 vintage, which was really kind of a tough one.
Mhm. And in part of your winemaking stylings, are you a subscriber to any type of farming practices? Are you whole cluster? And what's your oak regimen?
Mhm. So certainly farming practices, I would classify our vineyards and certainly our estate as regenerative farming. Our estate has been certified organic for the last 30 years. It was organic before we even purchased the property. It was an old apple orchard. It still is. We still have 10 acres of apples as well that we make a cider with. It's called Swirl cider. So barrel elevage for this fog eater is 11 months. I used about 10% New French oak. I use all barriques, which are the ones behind me. Not old, but a neutral, I should say, and mixed with a certain percentage of New French oak. And so everything is also native fermented. With the natural yeast that come in from the vineyard and what resides in the winery as well. And so we'll also punch down. I haven't been doing many. I really haven't done any pump overs for as long as I can remember. So we'll stop them, put piage, and then also do punch downs once or twice a day. And then fermentation will take place over typically a 2-week period, and fairly cool temperatures as well, which is the way we like it.
Well, it's a beautiful wine. I love the richness, the dense, the concentration that you achieve. These are all super high quality marks that I think are also associated with the better wines in the Anderson Valley. And you're certainly at the top there. I really
Yeah,
appreciate your time today and love this wine. I look forward to also moving into the next vintage here very soon.
right.
And we appreciate you being a guest on our show.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.